Testing 1, 2, 3.
You're one of the people at Ross?
This is my second year teaching at Ross, second year teaching ever. Yes, but I'm so happy to be here. 2 years down, or 1 and a few months.
Any final?
I just appreciate the families who came to support your child. They've been working so hard, and we have a fun time here at Ross, and I'm so thankful that you've all given us this opportunity to perform for you all. So thank you so much.
Give them another applause.
Just a couple of minutes from officially what we're set at 6:02. But any questions from public here about students or teachers here at Ross? Yes, Miss
Can you hear that? I was wondering if the parents could come out here to take a picture of the group, a forward picture, if that would be all right. Okay. Great. Yeah. Yes. And then my question is, how long have you been playing those instruments? I see drums, I see maracas. Somebody want to answer how long you've been learning how to use those instruments? For the week.
Yeah, we started rehearsals this week. Yes. But we tried to incorporate instrument play starting in kindergarten, actually preschool, because we teach preschool here. And we, as a signature music school, have so many resources and appreciate that because we can offer our students so much opportunity with a variety of instruments. As you see here, this is a vihuela. It's a traditional mariachi instrument. We were lucky to get one this year for Ross Elementary. And so I'm really thankful that we have these resources to utilize. Oh, hi, I'm Jordan Martinez. I'm the other music teacher at Ross. Hello.
Is this your first year?
This is my first year ever. Thank you so much. Muchísimas gracias. So 3 of us on the school board used to work here at Ross, so we know Ross is awesome. And I'd like to hear from any student what you love about Ross. What makes it so awesome?
I like Ross because I can do my work. I can spend time with friends and spend time with teachers. My favorite subject is music and recess. Monique Ross.
All right, let's give them applause.
Well, thank you, Ron, for being here for us. We're going to get our meeting started here. We'll start out by pledge of allegiance. Now, do I someone have you want to join us? All right.
Ready? And
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That's the best pledge I've heard all year, is one from many, many students inside of the school building. Excellent job, young people.
Thank you all again for being here with us today. I want to go ahead and get started with the rest of our agenda. We have some work here. All right. Our next item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion?
Mr. President, I move the board approve the agenda as presented.
Okay, there is a motion to adopt the agenda. Is there a second? All right, second from Dr. Schumacher. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, we'll go to vote to the session.
not unanimous. Thank you.
All right. I have a quorum. Okay. Thank you very much. Next one on our agenda is the school highlights. Dr. Anderson.
All right, the students are taking their photo, Miss Bowley, out there. Some of the parents don't want to get in it, but we're going to grab that photo. Thank you, Miss Jardina, for being so willing to help. Oh, you're going out there to get the photo? Thank you so much, Mr. We are such a family. I was going to call on anybody that had a phone to take this photo while they're in the hall posing. I'm going to transition over. This is so excited about the Senior of the Month, and maybe that's what Dean and Miss Watson were both on my mind first. Mrs. Watson's going to come forward and Park Senior of the Month, but please indulge and see the video. At the end of this, Ms. Watson also will be sharing a little bit about what students are doing this month in the area of voting and just what's going on in her building. And then she'll turn it over to our amazing student who I had time with this week to answer some questions. But first, enjoy the video. This is a wonderful thing about having this at a school. We get the opportunity to test out audio and to perfect it right on the spot. And because our team is that good, they can do it in seconds.
Hi, I'm Juan Manuel here at Howard. I do soccer, wrestling, and track. I'm also in the College Prep Academy. I've been there for 6 years, having an overall good time.
Juan is, obviously he's very intelligent. He's very planned out. He knows what he wants to do with life. Him and his buddies will come into my office and they'll just smile and I'll say, what can I help you with? And they just sit down and we laugh and we talk about like what possibilities they have. But it's just like having a conversation with an adult, really.
Juan is an absolutely outstanding student. Juan has been in my English class for the past 2 years, and over that time, he has consistently produced absolutely outstanding work. But more than that, Juan really contributes to making the classroom a stimulating environment.
I like having a good time at the school, making good memories. For me, it's just not all about the academics, just going to class. I like going to the games and having over a good time with my friends.
Even his entourage, his close group are all leaders. So he's surrounded by good people and he's just a natural leader. He will accomplish whatever he sets out to do, that's for sure, because he's always done that.
Juan does not like to take classes that are not weighted or are not some type of college credit. So he took an ed equity class, which was a Stanford University course. Juan is extremely intelligent, so he's used to doing extremely well. And although it challenged some, this class challenged him a lot, and he did not give up. He pushed through, and on his transcript, as of right now, he has credits from Stanford University.
I plan on getting a KU to major in computer science. I want to become a software engineer.
I would say, advice-wise, college is a whole different type of schooling, and so I want to make sure that he's successful. He challenges himself, he doesn't overlook himself.
People know that he is a good student. He stands out in that way, and he always wears his signature white shirt.
I like presenting myself as in a good light, kind of giving a good influence to not just myself, but to my siblings, to my parents. I like making my parents proud. I like overall just being a good person to look up to.
Miss Watson to come on up, and our senior of the month to come on up. Let's give him another applause.
I tell you, everything that was said on there is absolutely true. And I'm always smiling whenever I think of him and his friends, because they are above and beyond intelligent. They'll come at the end of the year and want to help with the master schedule because they need their schedule to look perfect for the next year. That's how intelligent these kids are. So I am so excited that he is here today and he's the senior of the month.
So today I come here honored. Honestly, like never would I have thought that I would be here being named the district world senior of the month, and it's quite unbelievable to me still to today. I really do think that my parents had a great say in this. They always want the best for me. They always love me. They make sure that I actually do my work. I go to my classes and make sure that I'm overall in a happy mood. Also, I wanted to talk about the teacher who had the most help in this, most influential on me, which was Ms. Della Cruz. She's my math teacher, both sophomore and she's my math teacher for my sophomore and junior year, and I really couldn't have asked for a better teacher. She's like always trying to get me to be on the right track, because junior year was quite difficult, but she would always ask me like every time that, how are you doing in your classes? I would tell her like, oh, I have A's and B's, and she would always just look at me like, a B? And like, what are you doing to fix that? And I should always just know better. Well, I'm really happy to be here, and I'll continue to try for the very best. I plan when it came to major in software engineering and try to minor in some data analysis. So I still have a lot ahead of me and a lot more challenges to come.
His favorite teacher and favorite principal have gotten him gifts. Little Highland Park got him gifts. So he is opening them now.
Go ahead. All right.
I really appreciate you guys. It's really thoughtful.
So Juan, it is our honor to give you the recognition, and it will be on the screen momentarily. It says we recognize you as October Senior of the Month, October 6, 2022. Congratulations. And we're going to be taking a picture with the board momentarily, but they have a couple questions, I believe, for you. I'll turn it over to the president. And our students, some parents had to leave, but those that could stay for a little bit longer, they're going to come back in momentarily as well, following our HPA.
Obviously, parents, amazing teachers, not just in our school, but obviously all our district. Just a couple of questions to get to know a little bit more about you. Any questions from our class? Sure. Congratulations. Well, very proud of you. I was hoping that if your parents were here, maybe you could introduce them to all of us here.
All right. So my mom, her name is Luce Hirano. Please stand. So she actually works as a lunch lady at Chase Middle School. She's been working there ever since I've been in the 5th grade. And my dad also Bob Nagle. He's been working in construction ever since I've been born, just trying to support the family and give me the best chance at a successful life that he can. And I am really thankful for both of them. Could not ask for anyone better.
Look like those from college.
Lacey, that is Ron. I am not surprised to see you standing up here. I know you said you are, okay, at us today, but I remember when you were a student here at Ross. I remember. And you were still classified as an English learner. That's why you were like on my list. However, you were doing so well and your English was already pretty proficient that you didn't need services from me. And I remember meeting your parents at that time too. And everybody talked about how great you were doing and what a wonderful student you were. And so I remember you well. And here you are. Senior of the month, felicidades, and to your parents too. Felicidades.
Thank you very much.
Any questions? All right. First of all, I'm very proud of you. Felicidades to yourself, obviously for your parents as well. And now we will. Do you want to take a photo right now, or do we want to wait till later? Potential Dr. Anderson, potential President Williams, and potential Vice President Billy. First off, welcome to Ross. We're excited to have you. As you saw, our music performers, Miss Martinez and Michelle, has done a great job. You guys can turn on up here. As they're coming in, I would like any Ross staff that is here to stand up to be recognized. You know, it takes many hands to make Ross great, as about to say, each one of the presidents over there as well. So we appreciate your support as well. Just some highlights. I'm thinking just this week, we took a group of students to Washington University in the 5th grade. One thing about this, which I know that everyone's going to prepare them for college and career. And one thing we're doing is experiences. And so that's what we're really focusing on. Secondly, partnering with Mr. Schultz and Eisenhower, we not only have a game group for boys and girls. During 7th and 8th hours, students come to us and spend time in the classrooms. So we continue that partnership as well with Eisenhower.
We read the Hispanic Heritage Proclamation last meeting with Dr. Mejia, And some questions were asked very, very briefly. Are there any other questions for any of our Rawsome staff, as was shared, before we prepare to take our initial break so they can get their photo with you? All right, at this time, Mr. Munoz, may we take a few minutes to have the break?
Yes, let's definitely see the photo. And we'll come back and return to the rest of the business today.
All right. We're going to ask the board to stay for just a moment, and our senior of the month, you want to come on up with your family? Look at you all. Look at you, Mr. Palmer, always supporting. Appreciate you. Thank you. Here's his senior of the month. Two more highlights, and then to begin us off, to conclude our highlights, while Juan is still here and his principal is still here, we had a wonderful time. As a highlight, this was the week in which I met with all of the superintendent student advisories. And so in having our discussion, we'll talk a lot about how to make sure young people get registered to vote and just what are opportunities within the school. And while it's not listed as the formal highlight, as we conclude these highlights with Ron here having been in that session at Highland Park, and his principal being here, and Ms. Giardina was in the session as well. Ms. Giardina will have the opportunity, along with Ms. Watson, to come on up. But we do have two more highlights, and we're really excited about these two. So we were at TCALC at a partnership event, and at this partnership event, we had two members from Stormont Vale who so graciously are giving their time not only as speakers and to come to partnership events, but they also are funding our nursing program with staffing, with material supplies, with jobs, with internships. They're pretty amazing people. Well, when this partnership meeting concluded and people were departing, a student stopped breathing and had a seizure. Mr. Dix shares that it was the scariest moment in his career because as the ambulances were coming, the student actually stopped breathing. And this is where these two individuals came in. And first of all, I'm going to ask them to come up and prepare to give them their certificate. Ms. Wallace, can you join and assist me with this? And I should have asked Mr. Dick to be here to assist, as he said he never seen anything like it. And he got from a seasoned high school principal. I'd like to ask to join me, and Ms. Wallace, can you call their names? And I'll come on.
Mrs. Carol Perry.
And Mrs. Amy Kincaid. Oh, wrong one. On the spot. You can stay for just a moment. So these two ladies took the device off the wall and began servicing this student in a manner that, and I think she stopped breathing more than once or twice, but they can tell you the story, and began servicing the student, literally breathing life back into this young lady. And they kept her stable until the ambulance came. The student is doing quite well, but they were on their way out of the building just talking to Mr. Dick. And these are administrators at Stormont Vale. And then the lady that week I came back and they were there just teaching the class and serving as guest speakers as if all of this didn't take place just a day or two before. Truly extraordinary servant leaders. And so we asked them to come to the board both to be acknowledged. And we're going to turn it over to the board to ask questions. Again, let's give them a warm thank you and a round of applause. Thank you so much. And did I share all of that story properly without Mr. Dick here? Well, either one of you, Ms. Kincaid or Ms. Perry, want to elaborate any further, and then they'll ask questions.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm Carol Perry, the Senior Vice President, Chief Nurse, and it was pretty accurate. We knew the patient had a pulse the whole time, but we didn't know for sure what was going on. And together, Amy and I were both glad that we were able to keep track of time and what all was happening so that we could pass that information on. But it's just from a nursing perspective, it's what we do from a clinical perspective. We didn't think of anything except let's see what we can do to help. I have two things I want to say. I know Dr. Bonebrake, he knows I'm an OB nurse, and he's probably saying to himself, unless you're having a baby, what could Carol do? And second of all, I want Juan to be a nurse. Juan, engineering, nursing, I've got a job for you, and I could scholarship you too. I'd give you 5 sweatshirts and 3 t-shirts. I'm very funny. No, it was a privilege. And we're so excited to be a part of the school, and the center is excellent, and to have a CNA course there. Amy has been very instrumental. I'll let her say a few things, but the school district is awesome. And Principal Dick has been so easy to work with that it's our privilege to get to partner. So thank you.
I think Cheryl probably summed it up. I don't have a lot to add other than we cried twice during your thing. So nurses cry too. I said, what's going on? So amazing to you, young man. That's quite an accomplishment, and to the parents. It's an honor to hear that. We talked a lot about today. We at one point didn't even really want to come do this because it's humbling, but it's also really, that's what nursing allows you to do. And I was a cardiac nurse, so I know together we were going to be okay. But thank you so much. Honestly, we're happy the student's okay. And Principal Dick's amazing. He's amazing to work with, and we hope we can get more healthcare providers helping our community and keeping people safe. It happens quite frequently, actually, not in a setting that has a lot of people around. So anyway, thank you so much. Thank you.
So while they're still at the microphone, they are humble in that spirit. Any questions for these two ladies? Remember, this is the first year of the Stormont program where they're partnering with us, and really building a nurse corps of 30 nurses in the future through Topeka Public Schools through this course. But any questions about their heroism? Yes.
So tell us what if we don't have experience in lots of experience to sort of recognize it? What might someone who doesn't have experience, what might they look for to know that this is something that needs that attention? Tell us more about this shortage of equipment. I know we have those in some of our schools, just for us like people.
So first we have to honor, we have a HIPAA code, so we don't share much about that. But there are AEDs, which are they're automatic, they're on walls. Basic life support people can do. It would not have taken a nurse to realize somebody needed help physically. You can tell that. I think anyone could have. But more often, if you have a pulse, really it's more about keeping somebody safe. And then alerting 911, which TCALC and the administrative staff there did. We don't want to go too much into it. Honestly, it wasn't anything that, well, if you talk to Principal Dick, he thinks it was something different. But for us, it was really about keeping her safe, trying to arouse her and that. And then we just were really worried about her and trying to follow up and provide the care. But I don't know how much we can get into the details, but
Thank you very much.
and the AED, and we also had a pulse oximeter and some other things that were just basic things that we could do. We wanted to get the best exam that we could to try to just pass that information on. So
I want to have a question. Switch to. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Robins, for being really in the right place at the right time. That's really how ordinary folks turn their heroes. And that's exactly what both of you are. Without you, things would have turned out much differently. So I'm just curious, in light of such awe-inspiring and humbling event, any kind of takeaways, personal learnings that you both experienced in light of that situation, kind of looking back on and taking stock and inventory of life?
I think that daily, and especially the last 2 years, we are grateful every minute of every day because we see what people have to go through, and especially in the acute care environment. But I think that from the partnership that we have with the CNA program, Amy and I both have been guest speakers there. And what we try to tell the students is every single day, pay attention, because you probably have a family member with diabetes, high blood pressure, and all the skills you're learning now could help your family or friends or somebody that you know. So pay attention. It's not just about learning a medical terminology, but it's about skills that can help assess and help us be a healthier community.
we also talked, we both have been nurses for a long time. We won't say how long, but a long time. And we've never really, I guess, been more nervous about the nursing shortage. And that is on us from a healthcare facility perspective or an institution, but really as a community, it is helpful to have people like this. So what Carol said is true. The very basics of helping someone are learned in this course. And even if you go into engineering or whatever, some of these skills will carry through. And so it really is it's a core concept. And so we are honored to be partnered with TCALC. It's a great opportunity, and this will not be our only semester. So
We're honored to have you. Thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you both. And if you can hang around for 2 minutes.
Question first, thank you both. I've known you two for a long time, and I appreciate you both. But also, it's actually also it's not only with that community partner do for us, but that community partner. And I know within the SPORM organization, we talked about partnering so we can help build that next generation of nurses. So as a brother, I want to say thank you.
thank you, Dr. Schumacher.
Those are my comments, but I've never known Amy or Carol to stay in their offices and not be involved with everything going on. So it doesn't surprise me in the least that they were in the area and able to help save a life. I just wish we had a sweatshirt for them.
Thank you all very much.
I miss you, Dr. Baumreich. I miss you deeply.
All right, our very last highlight, and then we'll take a photo with both our principals as well as with our nurse heroes. Our Principals Month, National Principals Month, and we are here at Ross, and Ross and Eisenhower are the best example of partnerships. So we're going to ask our Ross and Eisenhower principals to please come on up. Mr. Schwartz, I always compare him to Dale Knoll. Everybody knows Dale Knoll, loves Dale Knoll. I have never known anyone to have better relationships than Mr. Schwartz. He knows every student, every family. He is just loving on kids. I remember when we were in the midst of COVID and we needed physicals. I don't know how he drove all those kids over to Topeka High and stayed with them till late in the evening because the line was so very long. So between he and I getting them lunch and drinks and it's late at night, just exceptional. And through Mr. Schwartz, who had Mr. Gardner as part of kind of a training module that we did, Mr. Gardner was really trained up as an admin intern under Mr. Schwartz after being at Quincy for many years. And within that year, the two of them started a mentoring program for young men, many different partnerships. And I could go on and on with that. That is one of the reasons why these two young men are both our leaders here. Coincidentally, or maybe not coincidentally, but one of the things that I do want to mention about Mr. Schwartz, he previously was a police officer, also a servant leader. And so he is passionate about breaking the school to prison pipeline. They both are. So we're excited to have the two of them reading the proclamation, and they will turn it over for a few questions and we'll stop and take photos with the team. All right, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson, for having us. Thank you, board, for asking us to be here. It's an honor to do this. Proclamation of Topeka Unified School District, number 501, National Principals Month, October 2022. Whereas a principal's leadership is a crucial element needed to ensure the academic success of Topeka Public School students, and whereas school principals and assistant principals are responsible for the day-to-day operation of their school, which includes supporting students as learners, overseeing the effective implementation of student-centered programs, building meaningful relationships with students, families, teachers, community partners, and others, and nurturing a student-focused school culture. And whereas school principals and assistant principals are instructional leaders working with teachers to establish high expectations for all students and promote the use of effective and appropriate classroom practices. And whereas principals and assistant principals work diligently to create a positive school climate that is inviting to students, families, and the community, as well as to provide a safe and supportive environment where students learn, grow, and achieve. Sure. Our buildings, it's a unique job that requires a visual, lots of different talents. And it's really appreciate you as accessibility on occasions. I love to learn about yourselves and what drew you to this position. Well, I'll go first since I'm older and better looking, but me and Nick, we kind of got this. We like to joke with this show quite a bit. So, well, for me, I've kind of always been in public service. I originally started in working for the state, for the agriculture department, and I was like, I can do more. So then I got a crazy idea. I decided to become a police officer for a while, and I was a police officer in Morris for a couple of years. Realized, at that time, my oldest daughter was born, and realized, okay, I need something that's better for family. So I went into teaching. I taught for 12 years at Hope Street Academy. Of course, I did learn a lot from Dale Knoll.
I think probably the most thing I learned was, families come first. You do whatever you got to do for kids to get them through, to get them by, to let them be successful. And so from there, I decided that, I want to advance to something more than that. And so I got into administration. I originally started at Highland Park Central as a dean of students. I was given the opportunity to come over to the assistant principal with Leosha at Eisenhower, and I've been there ever since. So it's been a very good experience for me.
Thank you so much. I started out certainly one education, and my dad was a principal, and I just had really good teachers and really showed me along the way. So I think a lot of it comes from the teachers I've had in the past. My father, my sister's education, just realizing the difference that we can make in students' lives. Thank you very much.
We have a third principal here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the position that you have as a first principal.
I've wanted to be in education since I was little. I would be in our complex and teaching all of the little kids, and I would sit there, and I was a little bit older, so they had to sit there and let me teach them with my own workbooks. I would keep them every year, and then I would use them with my class. So it's been a part of my life. My grandmother was a teacher. As far as administration, I actually didn't want to go into administration. I wanted to be a teacher for life. But Dr. Lou kind of just kept pushing me, kicking me out of the classroom and all that. And she told me I became an instructional coach. We'll let you have classes still. And then all of a sudden the classes, there weren't any. So the guidance of all of the people around the mentors for love. So just, it's been a calling. Right. Yes, you can. So I'll keep it short and sweet, but I really believe on our principles because people get on to me and just my love and passion for learning and teaching and education, what we can do in our rules.
Thank you. I have questions for my colleagues.
And if there are not other questions, they all have had some exciting things for Hispanic Heritage Month. So Mrs. Gorsuch is going to start and share. Mrs. Watson will share what she's been doing. And I think we've seen what Ross has been doing, and we know that Ross and Eisenhower have been partnering. So to these two ladies, you want to come a little closer to the podium?
Sure, and I'd like to direct everyone's, first, good evening. Good to see you all. Thank you for inviting us here. I have to give all the credit to my assistant principal, though. She has done a fantastic job of organizing events that are very exciting. And actually, a few of our board members are joining us tomorrow. So if you look up on the screen here, you're going to see some of the pictures of things we've done so far for Hispanic Heritage Month. You'll see some of our students showing their Hispanic pride and how we've decorated our building. On the next slide, you'll see if you see that mural, those are Talavera tiles, and each student in our building designed and colored their own. And it was just so neat to see all the students walk by, try and find theirs. And like they would just stand there like pointing, and just so exciting to see how we can all be different, but how when we come together, the cultures can really be separated and create a beautiful thing. Then we've had in our library, Hispanic literature is on the shelves, and each week we've done a spirit week. Our first one was purple for bilingual, because at Scott we represent our Spanish speaking families with red and our English speaking families with blue. So we put them together. What does that give us? Purple. So we wanted to not only celebrate Hispanic cultures, but just that every student comes with a culture, and we want to honor that. And so there's purple. Then last week, Mr. Gowan, if you will listen. Oh, too far. I'm back. Thank you. We have been doing music, musicales miércoles. So in the lunchroom, we play different Hispanic music and Latin music, and it has been really funny to see the kids dancing and singing along, and like, my mom listens to that song. And so it's so fun just to see the kids connect with them. Then we were Rojo para Español, and on our field day, you can see all of our students and staff wearing their red, and then we're posting different
different opportunities for our families to engage in on social media and to learn more about different cultures. And then our celebration continues with our last slide. Tomorrow we have our cultural tour of different cultures and different activities where students will engage in an art project with the Washburn Art Lab with bilingual storytelling time featuring Dr. Mejia, Mr. Munoz, and Mrs. Stewart Campbell, who are reading stories. We're very excited. And then also a special musical performance from Roger Ortega, who is a local Hispanic musician. So all the kids are like, who's the celebrity that's coming? We're excited for them to experience that. And then you'll see on the right up there is our final culminating event, which is our Carreras or Family Fair, hosted by our PTO, where we have a lot of different local performers coming, and we have food trucks, and it's always a great time just to get together. And I think this year we're also going to do some like an open dance floor. So Dr. Mejia, Dr. Kit, we expect you out there doing your salsa. All right. So everyone's invited, and thank you for letting me share.
Now we have to give a hand clap to that.
Next year I'll be able to make that. We've done some amazing things. The focus has been all around the school, whether it's posters or bulletins, and a whole area where there's novels of Hispanic culture. But the best part, it's my favorite activity or event that happens, and we've only had it once because then COVID happened, so we're glad to bring it back, is our Hispanic Heritage Tasting Fair. And it is built of families from Highland Park High School that all have booths, and they represent their culture with the food that they make very well. And then anyone can come and then walk around, and they get to learn about the heritage. They get to have tastings of every single type of food. Oh my goodness. It was like dinner. The whole soccer team came out, the whole football team. It was parents, families, like everyone in our own families. So it was incredible.
And that's where the cupcakes came from.
And that's where your cupcakes came from. All right, thank you so much. All right, can we take 3 minutes for our photos, both with our nursery rose? We're going to ask them to come up. All right, nursery rose.
Hi, yep, you okay? Yeah. You never know anyone. Got it.
Okay, moving on, actually, that was a lot of fun. All that you've done today. Be with us. Next item on the agenda is school highlights, public communication. I believe I have the just want the question to speak. So first off, I'm going to see Ms. Alyssa Jones. Ms. Jones, I'm going to need you to be here before you speak, and you can go ahead and move on 5 minutes. All right. Please come forward to state your name and address for the record. You have 10 minutes to address the board. We ask that your remarks be done by speaker. If you should not complain against a specific employee, we ask that you select your legal complaint to the superintendent. If the complaint is against the superintendent, please address your legal complaint either to your name as medical team or to the speaker of the board. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. My name is Alyssa Jones. I live at 1501 Jewel Avenue in Topeka. I'm a parent of 2 students in the Topeka Public Schools and a very proud ESOL teacher at Topeka West High School. I'm here tonight to speak briefly about the new social emotional grading requirement at the high school. I understand that this requirement is coming from the state, and I know it is well-intentioned. In our elementary schools, they implement second step curriculum and train teachers, partner with counselors to build and assess these skills in our students, such as my daughter at Whitson. In contrast, high school teachers learned within the last week that we are now required to assess our seminar students each quarter on 6 broad areas of social, emotional growth and character development. The deadline for first quarter grades is Monday, and we were just introduced to the standards and rubrics, which I have provided for you. The greatest of many concerns is the potential to create inequity. We are not trained evaluators of student social, emotional, and character development, and we have no time or valid method to collect data for these measures. Yet we have to rate the degree to which a student, quote, ascribes to a set of core principles, which are unnamed. This sets up the teacher's value system as the norm for comparison, despite the fact that many of our students do not share the class, race, or cultural norms of the majority of our teaching force. Research indicates that teachers' perceptions of students vary according to the student's racial background, among other measures. Rubric terms like ethical behavior and good character place on the seminar teacher the task of deciding if a student is ethical and even good. There may be harmful consequences for students outside of school. We are required to record and post these scores on the students' report cards. We have questions about how this data will be used and by whom. We don't know if it will show up on semester grade cards or transcripts, where it may be visible to third parties such as college admission staff or potential employers. We don't know how receiving those scores could affect students later in life. What we do know is that historically, this kind of institutional rating has worked out badly for anyone outside certain privileged groups. It harkens back to the days when gatekeeping bodies used invalid and prejudicial criteria for deciding who was fit to work, get home loans, or be blacklisted from jobs, and more. KSDE warns that in the interest of ethics, school systems need to consider the potential risks and benefits of implementing any assessment of these social, emotional, and character development standards. I'm here to ask that you reconsider whether our method is valid, ethical, and beneficial. We can press pause and seek the input of our District Equity Council. We should not move forward with this method if it does more harm than good. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Our next individual is Cecilia Hardwood. Okay. So I'll mention the same thing I mentioned, Ms. Jones. Please come forward and state your name and address for the record. It's to address the board. We ask that your remarks be respectful to the board. If you should have a complaint against a specific employee, we ask that you submit your complaint to the superintendent. If the complaint is against the superintendent, please address your complaint either to me or the speaker of the board. Thank you so much.
Hello. Hello, my name is Sydney Ho. I live at 221 Southwest Greenwood Avenue, and I teach math and coach dance at Topeka West. I am here tonight as well to speak about the high school social emotional grading procedure we were informed about yesterday. The end of the quarter is tomorrow. I would like to voice my concerns about the rollout speed of this new initiative and the potential implications of a single teacher making subjective evaluations about students on their permanent academic records. Before I continue, let me make two things very clear. Our current administration and counselors at West are working tirelessly to support our students, faculty, and families along with the mission of the district. Additionally, I am fully in support of social emotional learning initiatives, programming, and lessons, just not this evaluation method. We are being asked to evaluate our seminars, as Alyssa said, as part of their quarter grade card. This is essentially a grade. Students are in seminar for less time than any other class each week and are encouraged to not stay in their home seminars and instead travel to classes in which they need academic assistance. With this setup, I regularly also have some of my other 150 students from my math classes traveling to me for academic assistance. This leaves just one day a week for me to get to know my seminar students, facilitate our social emotional OVAS class meetings, do grade checks, complete our Naviance requirements, and many other things that pop up throughout the year. At this point in the school year, none of us have made it through the 6 OVAS class meetings that cover the standards that we are asked to evaluate our students on. In what other classroom do we grade students on something they were not informed about and explicitly taught? And in what other classroom do we provide a rubric to teachers, but still not the students, 95% of the way through the grading period? If I had this rubric in August, I could have shared it with my students and their families, and I could have been taking notes and making observations of my students in the criteria provided. We are also very unclear about how these ratings will follow our students. As part of their quarter grade card, it will be part of their permanent record. Students stay with the same seminar teacher for 4 years and will be rated by the same teacher for all 4 of those. Yes, there is a rubric, but at the end of the day, we are ultimately making value judgments about 14 to 18-year-olds based off of our definition of appropriate communication, ethical behavior, and productivity, which are some of the things on the rubric. KSD's toolkit on measuring social emotional growth locally recommends several things that we are not doing. I would strongly urge the district to reconsider including social emotional grading on this 9-week report card. I would love to have conversations with my students and their parents in conferences in a couple of weeks about their social emotional growth. And I would love to have the opportunity to teach these skills, but I do not love the idea of blindsiding them with an addition to their grade card that I did not know was coming and that they did not know was coming and I do not feel comfortable assigning. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Individual also speaking as Mr. John Gibson. Anyways, plus the first situated address for the record, all this wants to do, we have to try to translation for 2 non-official that's a specific reporting submitted to the company to superintendent with the complaints against the superintendent. That's that complaint to the job. Thanks so much.
Jeremy Gibson, 928 Southwest Fraser, Topeka NA Topeka president. I'm reaching out to you today in this discussion for 2 things, actually. The first that caught my attention was what has just been discussed by the 2 speakers previously. The only thing I have to add to their eloquent dialogue is the fact that if we're invested in social emotional learning, we need to invest in the time to teach, train staff, make students aware and parents aware of what we're looking at. That's the first thing. The second thing we need to do is make sure that this is not a box check. Dropping it on to staff 48 hours before the end of the quarter and expecting them to review, understand what it is they're looking for in such a short turnaround time is not, in my mind, does not do it justice, and it is nothing more than a box check. The second thing I came to talk to you about was brought to my attention this today as well, and it is about the flooring of grades at one of the high schools. There are many philosophical discussions that can be had with the staff, the student body, and the community we serve when we discuss flooring grades. This is not a new discussion per se. We've had these discussions for many years. I had them at Topeka High 10 years ago, and and we opted not to. At that time, we opted not to. These are critical conversations that we must have as a school system before we engage in such changes. By not engaging with the community we serve, the students we uplift, and the staff we entrust, we are creating mistrust at the least, and hostility at the most. Please, I implore you to engage with your community when you make such changes as flowing of grades and of the social emotional grading. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So on the agenda is disposition of business by consent. I have a floor and a motion. Anybody will make a motion?
Mr. President, I move the board approve the items of business by consent as presented and authorize the board president or superintendent to sign the special project and purchasing contracts for and on behalf of the board.
Thank you very much. We'll have a motion. Is there a second? Second by Angela. Any questions? Okay, yes. So I want to see everybody.
I did have a question on tuition and concurrent enrollment. I'm assuming this might be a Miss Wallace's question. I was looking at the amounts and the differences, discrepancies in the amounts, and I was wondering if there's some explanation why some schools have more than others, and why is there a difference? So the amount allotted is paid from title federal dollars. When ESSA was renamed several years ago, they changed the policy of allowance to help support tuition. And Topeka High and Highland Park are both Title I schools. And so more of those federal dollars are utilized to provide tuition. And we paid for the tuition of all of the students that were submitted. And more tuition paid this semester than we've ever paid. So we're actually pretty pleased with the number of credits our high school students are getting. Who submits the names for choosing who gets these concurrent credits? So they complete an application process to help support the tuition. Sometimes we pay the full tuition. Sometimes if parents can pay partial, then we just supplement what parents can pay. But there's an application process. So any student at either Highland Park or Topeka High can complete that. They're school-wide projects, so all students benefit from their title funds. Do we get that information out? And that might be, I guess we still have Highland Park here. How do we get that information out to our parents? Is that through the parent nights and college prep? So that piece of it, I leave to the high schools as far as getting that application submitted and how they communicate that to students and families. We also send it out to all students and parents and let them know that there is an option if they are not taking a class because of the funding. They have an opportunity to apply for the scholarship. And then those students who are already enrolled in the class, their teachers go over that information with them also, and they are able to apply to. It's good to know that parents are getting the information and having the opportunity to apply, and the discrepancies make sense with the Title I schools. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, we'll move to a vote. Ms. Lister. Thank you very much, Ms. Sister. Moving to the next item on the agenda, Superintendent's report, Dr. Anderson.
All right, good afternoon or good evening, my goodness. All right, so we're going to start off first with just reporting out a couple of things that have been occurring over the course of this month. Since there was, while we in public address don't address public address comments in this space, since there was a time mentioned in terms of something being due in the next 24 to 48 hours and you don't meet again for 2 weeks, Ms. Wallace will be talking a little bit about, as a reporting out section, about this is the time of the year where we're preparing for parent conference, and in preparing for parent conference, report cards are coming out. And in doing so, she'll be talking in general about matters related to that as well as part of this report. That might be helpful for all individuals in this space as well. We do want to pre-empt Highland Park, but first, and since we do have so many principals here, and it is parent conference and report card time as well, this is a really good audience to be able to have a little bit of dialogue in this school space, which couldn't be more perfect. But before we do that, we're going to show a little video clip that Highland Park, Topeka High, Topeka West have all been showing, thanks to the past student superintendent advisory student, Kelm Lear, and other members of communication, and Ms. Mason and others who are here today. Thank you.
Young people are the heart of our democracy. We are the engines of change. We are the energy of every movement in our country's history. This November, we have another opportunity to change the direction of our country. So my question to you is, how will you make your voice heard on November 8th?
On November 8th, I will be using my voice to make sure no one in my community has to go to bed hungry.
This November, I'll be using my voice to protect the environment.
I'll be using my voice this November to vote for higher quality education so we're prepared to lead the world forward.
El 8 de noviembre voy a usar mi voz para hablar para mi gente.
Now that you've heard why they'll be using their voice on November 8th, we want to know why you'll be voting too. Register to vote today at ksvotes.org and make a plan to vote. Then let us know on social media why you'll be voting in this election. And remember, your vote is your voice. Use it.
Communications. Our student now, a college student, created that video along with Miss Mason, who's here. Can you stand for just a minute so they see that you're here in the background? And she doesn't want to stand, but she's just waving, letting her know that she's a cheerleader for voting, and we thank her for that. But not just voting, civic engagement, which really has been something she's been quite passionate about with our schools. We're going to turn it over to our high school principal that's here to share some of what the high schools are doing. And then Ms. Jardina, she may be joining us as she was in the student group at Highland Park. And my question was, are students registered? Are you registered? And if you'd like to share, and what can we do to continue to have civic engagement and to have students registered? And they gave some additional ideas in addition to sharing what we already do. So you'll get a chance to hear the Highland Park voice. And then if there's something that doesn't come up, I'll add to that. Mrs. Blackwood and Ms. Jardina.
The video is amazing. I love it. It looks just like one that would be on like MTV or something. So I really enjoyed the video. I'm sharing with our students. Something else that we've done just recently, which is really exciting, is the League of Women Voters have come into our history classes. And just in a short amount of time that I'm there, they signed up 40 students that are now registered to vote, which is like incredible because getting them excited and pumped up to vote is just, I love it. On top of that, we have during our testing day at the end of the senior section, we have just a station dedicated to voters, so they can register there also. So we're really excited. We want as many as possible signed up. So that is what we're doing. And in the student council, the students were really excited to talk about all the different ways they could do this. And one of those was to put it in we have a Google Classroom just for grade levels. So they wanted it put in the same Google Classroom so that the seniors that were of age would have that access as well.
you. Now stay up front for just a moment. If there are other questions, every high school had the League of Women Voters there this year. Every high school has incorporated in government classes this topic as well as the League of Women Voters. It was wonderful being at an event and hearing someone share that they were at Topeka West and all the students in that class, it was a government class, were registered to vote. So we do know that traction is occurring. And that video is showing, I believe, at your senior seminar time, and it's showing at every high school senior seminar time. And so as that video continues to run, as was stated here, students have voice in how else to share this. And one thing that came up at the other schools that I didn't hear in this space was at one of our high schools, they shared that they weren't sure that students knew that they have to October 18th. And then a student that I think Highland Park shared that she was not 18 yet, but tried to register or couldn't register because she didn't, fully follow all the rules, and that, she had to wait before the next election. So just understanding the rules behind how old do you need to be? And if you're not 18, yes, you can register, but you have to be 18 by that election. So she shared that. That was Kyla Burney that shared that at Highland Park. So she's watching, just putting her name out there. But with all of our other students, just hearing their voice has been amazing. So we thank the league and all others who have helped us continue to gain momentum in this space. Any questions from the board for our high school principals before they prepare to depart?
Any questions?
Very cool what Highland Park is doing. So thank you. Ms. Watson, when you said that it was shared with the school, like through what medium was this video shared?
Or, is what we do is we share it with our Scott time teachers, and then they pull it up and they can share it with students in their classes. The video.
Okay, thank you. And then also the comment about how you said it was in the shared Google Drive. Does it mean the video, or does it mean how to register?
So on the Google Drive, we do have the video in case they want to access that, but also just that information so that they can click and learn exactly what it is that they want. Knowing those deadlines of college, you have to go by the end, and all of that is in there for them to click and have access to the material.
Wonderful. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Yes, and what it is the seniors have their own area. So it's just dedicated to them. It's shared out with all of them. They're the ones who can access it. Every grade level has one. And so that is where everything they can possibly know is shared to.
Thank you so much. And last question, and I'm not sure who to address this to, but sitting at our desks are these little flyers. Could somebody speak to us about where all has this been disseminated for our students?
Right. And we thank Dr. Kipp for forwarding us the flyer from last year at the graduation. And remember, every student got this when they graduated. It was in their graduation packet. We've continued to provide this to schools. And one of the things that we said for this last 2 weeks, that idea about the Google Drive came from a student yesterday about, oh my goodness, can we do this now? And yes, they may see the flyer sitting in a hallway or on a table. The intentionality about also making sure that on which you don't see on here, the QR code that's on the back, putting that in a larger space, actually on the screens, because that's really what young people look at. They're less about paper and more about that. So while it's disseminated at the schools and disseminated throughout the district and at other spaces where parents may register, really being more electronic with pushing that out, that just a QR code. One student shared, I can't remember if it was Highland Park or Topeka High, but they were at it might have been Topeka West. They were at a youth commission event, and at that youth commission event, in fact, that was at Topeka West, I believe, that they actually just pull out the QR code and register while at the event. So those are things over the next couple of weeks that we'll continue to do. So this is disseminated both to our prior graduates, our current students, but the paper piece may not be seen as much or even picked up from what students share about what young people really pay attention to. And the other thing is the QR code's on the back. So if you don't turn it over, you don't really know it's there. So all of that was just helpful to listen to young people continue to get feedback about what grabs their attention.
So one of the questions I would like to ask is, I'm assuming a lot of this discussion happens in our government classes. Could you tell me where a lot of the discussions about voting happens? What particular courses?
Honestly, it's all over the place, especially with our seniors who are either of age or becoming of age, whether it's in their Scott time, whether it's in their history class, because not all students will take it first semester, they might take over it second semester, but the talk happens regardless. So, I mean, our teachers are very strong about getting kids up and moving. So it's happening everywhere.
So are we also teaching them to research their candidates instead of just voting parties, but understanding what they're voting for in their candidates? Are we stressing to them the importance of researching candidates?
Absolutely. One thing that I can count on with my students is you don't just go with what is popular or what is common or what they have or what society. They want to make their own decision. And so I love that about our kids. And they absolutely want to know more about who, because they're not going to just go with what you say.
I like that. So I'm wondering how we can bring this down into our lower grades to help build this consciousness of voting and understanding candidates, doing research. How can we lower this down in our grades so that we are creating civically minded students and citizens?
Fortunately, we have lower grade principals here. Just what a perfect conversation. Any lower grade principal? Oh, and I see one of them was able to leave. So that leaves Ross to talk about voting and how you can have that at an elementary, and whether the principal wants to talk or whether you want to empower a member of the team. Principal, you can come on up, but any member of the team.
Before they step up, I'm going to speak. I was at elementary. One of the things I did was we had student council at the elementary, and we did it through ballot budget. And so this was at Scott, and so the students were able to learn that way at the elementary. The first thing that comes to mind is we have ambassadors that begin when they're up in fourth and fifth grade. So they are beginning to make a difference within their own school. And then another piece that comes to mind is when they're in classes, just having those deep discussions where they're not accepting an answer, but they're digging into it, giving background details to support their opinions. So, and for voting, so when it comes to candidates, you know, following up those candidates and talking about it, this kind of thing. I'm a former fifth grade teacher, and in fifth grade, we do a lot of U.S. American history. We talk about the founding fathers. So, and I had the pleasure of teaching during an election year. So we did a lot with, like, you know, political parties. We talked about the candidates. I encouraged them to research for themselves, provided links and all that for them to look into. And we also talked about how just because someone in your family thinks one way doesn't mean you have to. So we had a lot of those discussions in fifth grade at the elementary level. I also know throughout the younger grades, we talk about what's a good citizen, which also talks about voting and how to help your community. So all that kind of ties together, but it really hits in fifth grade when we talk about the founding fathers.
Thank you. I think as we see what our country's doing now, this becomes even more relevant and important to do with our students and not just glaze over it. So thank you for putting that effort in, and I hope we will create even more focus there.
All right, any questions? Yes, Mr. Thank you, Mr. President. So Mr. Schmidt and I were just talking and wondering if, and I guess this question is for Dr. Anderson and or the group of principals, have we as a district explored the idea of potentially using the high schools as potential voting locations so that folks are learning, young people are learning about the candidates are issues and the parties and everything else, but then they're turning around and exercising their votes for those that are of age to do so.
Several of our buildings are voting locations. I was just looking at the clerks, and she probably knows off the top of her head which buildings and facilities are, but Many of them across the district already are. I'd have to look and see which ones, including Gwinnett, actually. But several of the buildings have certain areas sectioned off. And so we work with the Board of Elections and they determine and ask us which spaces they need based on areas throughout the county. I don't know if they know that offhand, so we'll just add it to a little note to you of which buildings, because not just high school, you might want to know is a Welcome Center, is Burnett, all of the other places where people register, but also where young people go. So we'll provide that information across the district where those locations are. Thank you for asking that question.
Fantastic. Thanks, John.
The other piece, district-wide, one of the items that we, several of our schools have mock elections. They had them last year, they had them the year before. But district-wide, all of the East Topeka principals have come together to really plan things that they're all going to do. I know Chase they do mock elections. I know Robinson does that. But, really looking at, and while Robinson's not in East Topeka, really looking at what they'll do together. So we'll be encouraging things that are focused on civic engagement. So when students graduate or they go to high school, they already have been experiencing some of these pieces. So that'll be a district-wide encouragement. So you'll be able to hear under civic engagement, hear things that everybody's doing. And one of those, it's very easy to have a mock election across the district. McClure has had mock elections. So schools scattered, but rather than having it scattered, just saying across the district, here's what we're doing in that regard. French and several of the schools on the west side have also done that as well, in addition to some on the east side. All right, we thank our principals. Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to bring to the board's attention some additional work that Topeka Public Schools has done to increase civic engagement. A committee met in late August, so just pretty recently, and the committee was Dr. Gray and his communications team, and Ms. Foley, Mr. Tatum, myself, Dr. Kip, Ms. Masoner, and then a few other advocates in the community. And Calum Lear, how could I forget Calum Lear? He's a superstar Topeka High School 2021 graduate, and he was the visionary for the video that we all just saw. And I also want to thank Mr. Garrett also for doing all your magic, and Mr. Williams, yes, for doing your magic to make sure that video got produced and then widely disseminated. So I'm really pleased about that. And let's see. Okay, also though, at this meeting, another issue that we discussed was Topeka Public Schools applying for the Kansas Board of Education Kansas CAN 2023 Star Award in Civic Engagement. Applications are routinely due in June, and then the awards are announced in October. The 2022 Star Awards in Civic Engagement, that'll be announced in October at the KSDE meeting by Commissioner Watson. I want us to win this award. Dr. Kip had data for us at that August meeting about how some other school districts had more students registered, like high school students and recently graduated seniors. And I really want Topeka Public Schools to win that award, because we know there are great things going on in Topeka Public Schools. We heard it from our Highland Park staff. I heard that Topeka High has a voter registration club project, the League of Women Voters going to all the high schools. So we know there are great things happening in our schools. So I'd like to look more closely at what more is happening, and perhaps like a task force or another committee can be assembled where we can really shine the light on what we're doing well in civic engagement, and to what Ms. Foley was saying, what more can we do for K-12? So not just high school, but starting like in elementary to like plant the seeds of how important it is to be an informed voter. So I was wondering if the board would be interested in exploring and expanding our district-wide K-12 civic engagement, and if Dr. Anderson would consider helping us form a representative team that would consist of a few board members, a few educators, and of course some students.
Oh, my student advisory would love this, and I'll tell Kim to come on back if the board is willing, as you share that piece. I can tell you students would be happy to facilitate it. I'm offering them up. And I'd love to give those student leaders who open and close those meetings, if the board would like for that to happen, administration on this end, as you mentioned, administration facilitating, we'd be happy to facilitate that space.
Thank you. I really want us to win that award in 2023. Thank you.
With that, speaking of awards, we did just learn that we won the individual plan of study and the social emotional award from KSDE for the Kansas Can. So we're excited about that. I do want to give the very last reporting out. This reporting out section is a little bit longer than before, but also because the timetable was mentioned, we do have a high school principal here, a high school administration here, principal and assistant principal. And so Ms. Wallace, really from her seat, she'll share a little bit about its parent conference time. We're excited in the next couple of weeks. And report cards are coming out. With report cards coming out, and Ms. Wallace will share what some updates were when those were rolled out, as well as Mrs. Giardina and Ms. Watson will share what this looked like in their building as a high school principal relative to report cards. And elementary's here to talk about what this looks like in their building in that regard. Ms. Wallace?
Absolutely. So we are coming up on the end of the first quarter, and grade cards are due Monday night by 6 o'clock to be completed. I will share a little bit about some of the changes to the report card. So last spring, based on our Kansans Can social emotional rubric, we developed and piloted at all of our schools the social emotional indicators that are on the report card. They have been adjusted based on some teacher feedback from last spring. And then this summer, the social emotional committee that also included counselors at every level, creating a rubric to help teachers assess social emotional growth. Social emotional growth is a KSDE outcome. It's part of our accreditation process, and it's also part of our strategic plan. And so these were presented to counselors at back to school. There was a choice session for teachers. And then for the most part, we left like departments and PLCs at schools to really dig in deep and look at those. And so at every school, it looked a little bit different about when they take a look at these, but they were shared at the beginning of the year in August. They were shared with principals at the principal meeting on September 1st, and then shared for them to then roll that out during professional learning communities at the building level.
And as well as the professional development sessions that were offered to all staff. What month was that? As Mrs. Watson and Ms. Giardina share what it looks like in their school.
So in August there was, and then we also created video videos out there and available for teachers as well.
And for your building, can you talk about the report card?
For our building, as soon as we got, it was kind of like a step system. It was like, here's first about what it is for, and then it goes into the rubric, and then we get the steps on how to actually do it physically. And so every time each step, this next one was switching around, and then we have a staff meeting, and then we shared that information also with our entire staff. And so it was way back, and it was September when we first shared about it, and then we also shared our staff meeting in the next couple of weeks. We had it, and then we went down sharing about speak about how to do it. So we went to we brought it to the building leadership team, because our building leadership team has somebody from every PLC and every department. And we went over it as a building leadership team. And then that following Wednesday, they went, so this was on a Monday, on that following Wednesday, they went and worked with their PLCs and helped train them. Then this Thursday and Friday, we have training sessions in case you want more help. And so our librarian is actually available for staff to do that. And then Monday, even though it's their flex day, our librarian is there all day, and she will be providing support if they get stuck or need some additional support for that.
When you're at school and your principals here, they don't know when they're going to be called. I'm talking about voting and everything else in those spaces. And so for parent conference, it is coming up in 2 weeks. If you have questions for elementary or high school or anyone else, whether it's parent conference report cards or anything else, they are here to answer those, as am I. And I'll turn, you all may have a seat. The one women can probably leave since they're not at Ross. But I'll turn it back over to the board. But that is the reporting out, the big piece for us. We do have an enrollment report to give this evening, and I'd like to call Dr. Kip up to share that. He gives these wonderful projections, and then and he always gets very clear.
Has one more question, and I have a follow-up.
What levels are this? Is this rubric used in? Is this pre-K-12 or just high school?
So the rubric that you have in front of you is grades 9 through 12. There's a different rubric because there are different social emotional standards at different grade levels. There's a PK2, a 3-5, a 6-8, and a 9-12 rubric. And looking at Ross and Eisenhower, I'm assuming your staff has been trained on these as well.
And may I ask them to come up and share what they're doing about that in a parent conference? And for this one, you want to come on up? Yep, feel free to come on up. And Mr. Gardner, can you join this talk?
During back to school PD, I had the privilege of sitting in on 3rd grade curriculum, and they did go over all of these additions. We've also been given many resources from the district, and teachers have had those for a while, and we've been able to have discussions about that as well.
Yeah, I would say we train the staff on the rubric and how to enter the social emotional. And in the middle school, us middle school principals, we really communicate together quite a bit. So it's pretty consistent amongst all the middle schools in our district.
My question is, so I know that there's an emphasis on making sure that our students are college and career ready. And my question is, I think it's great also that we have education, make sure our staff know, what that means. But the part that changed during my first, just say that as an example, my daughter's conference where she actually presented, I didn't really know what the significance of that was. And my question is, how might we think about communicating what it means to be college and career ready to our parents and sort of things that they might be doing to sort of help team up together with our staff and our teachers? Any thoughts on that?
Let me turn that over to a principal. Mr. Gardner. You want to think about college and career?
With college and career readiness, the one thing that Ross will discuss is just experiences. I discussed earlier. Taking students to Washburn was a very impactful experience for them. Just to walk the campus and be exposed to that. And then with parents, we're really looking at community and bringing parents to the school. We recently had an event where we had dumps with grown-ups. So just letting them know that we're working together in this partnership. Yeah, so middle school college career, we have a college prep program, but we also have a college and career ready nights, you might say, enrichment nights where we invite families in to learn about high school courses, getting them ready for high school so they can get ahead, but also what, pathways they could get involved in once they get to high school. So at our level, it's a lot of getting the kids ready for high school to go on to further. And we do have nights where we have parents come in and we go over those activities with them.
Thank you so much.
That's just another bureaucratic burden placed on the administrations and schools so that the state, local, federal governments can withhold funds. I mean, it's always been possible to write down on a grade card the teacher's personal comments and assessments of a student, more than just an A, B, C, D, whatever. Who's requiring all this and what are the repercussions? Because I fail to see where you can be performing at grade level and yet you're not college and career ready. There's not a real good assessment for that.
So it is Kansas Department of Education outcome area for us to report and monitor social emotional growth. And that part, the reporting part of it is for parents. Many of the social emotional indicators are often or are also college and career ready soft skills like perseverance, building positive relationships, being able to collaborate and create within a group of students. So there are a lot of those life skills and job skills that we're looking at assessing. The penalties would be, when we're talking about reporting and monitoring, it's part of our accreditation cycle to continue to grow and improve and add to. And we added this because that was part of our feedback from KSDE when we completed our Kansas Can Award a year ago. And we got the results back. So this was kind of our answer to that, and how do we improve and continue to grow, and also report to parents on how their students are doing with those soft skills.
This is a way governments and bureaucracies can justify not making classes smaller and education longer for 50 years. Certain politicians tried to make 200 school days, 220 school days, like the rest of the world. Instead, they're trying to make up the difference with these things, which take another college degree to come up with. And there's penalties if you don't. Just finding here, I'd tear it out.
Thank you. And I think Dr. Kipp would like to make sure that we do acknowledge, and we would like to make sure that we acknowledge that she's preparing to leave our cheerleader for voting, and then he's going right into enrollment. Dr. Kipp?
Yes. Thank you. Just to kind of go back to the voting initiative, I think one of the big catalysts was Dr. Mason. He's sitting right here. She kind of approached me and Dr. Gray and said, hey, I'm doing some kind of analysis on county voter registration, including that to graduates. So how many of our teachers graduates are actually going out and getting registered to vote? And so we started analyzing the data, and Shawnee County is one of the higher ones, but why can't we be 100%? So with that kind of data point, I think we're a great artifact in applying for civic engagement if we have been able in that regard. So I just want to thank her publicly for helping us out. Okay, so I am very excited to dive into unaudited, very fresh enrollment data. We audited in November, but you go back a slide. Okay. So some of the highlights, before I get into that, some of the highlights, I don't know why that's not showing, but as Dr. Anderson mentioned, we did have a projected enrollment of 12,803. Our actual enrollment came in at 1,795. So we were off by 8 students. So I want to apologize publicly that the projection was off a little bit, but I don't do that to my board, but it's really incredibly important because we do this back in December and we start determining allocations for staffing, supplies, resources, looking at right sizing classrooms and teacher ratios because our enrollment is declining, that's kind of the nature of many districts in the state. So I'm going to jump through some basic demographics, enrollment by gender. I can pretty much put it for the last 10 years. This is kind of innovation of most females in our district. And before I jump on the race thing, I also want to make sure to circle back to everybody's stout last year. And I want to give an update really quick
on the impact of that enrollment shifts. I think originally we Jardine taking on another 100 kids, but we ended up taking 75 kids. And Randolph was another favor of that stock closure. And they're going to be up 16 kids. So most families decided to go back to their home schools or opt for Jardine. Jardine adjusted their resources to accommodate more of those kids coming in. Okay, so let's take a look at race. Some of the big changes: Hispanic population continues to grow. 3 years ago, we were, well, yeah, around 31%. So let's jump a couple percent. The white population has also increased very slightly. I think years ago it was 35.6. So it's jumped a little bit. What's interesting is the African American population. 2 years ago it was 17%. Or 17.5, so it's actually dropped a little percentage. But that might be offset by some increase in multiracial. 2 years ago, multiracial was right at 12%, and it's slowly going up there. So we're seeing a lot more diversity, and that's kind of the general breakdown. When else last people like to look at subgroups? Either or is still in right now. That's what it was probably the last day. Special ed did have a slight spike. This current school year compared to the previous year, and special ed. And to give you kind of a global view, this is 7 years of enrollment by middle school. So it doesn't take a statistician to kind of see that downward slope with the elementary. What's really encouraging this year, elementary was starting to tell an even increase. So this is an exciting sign. Most that's going to be really slow downward slope. In high school, we're running up and I think so that decrease from elementary starting to feed into the high school levels. And so we did have the largest drop at the high school level. So that was my quick enrollment update. Like I said, it's still unaudited at this point, but I'm willing to field some questions that you have at this point. Thanks for a couple of questions, Dr. Bobek. First name was Billy.
Was this a September 20 data or at the beginning of the year?
This is September 20 data. Yes, absolutely. Are any schools cheating anymore? I'm sorry? Are any schools cheating anymore? Like you can't leave the district until September 21. Then you can go to Topeka High. I am going to I'm not aware of anything. I think that's the critical day. If the student is absent, we'll still have an opportunity to make that count. You don't have any people that arrive September 21. Oh, yeah. Every year that happens. I think it kind of goes out of the wash. To be honest with you. Maybe kids that let the phone and kids that come to us since September 21, probably 20 more kids. So just make sure the system is going.
Congratulations, I guess. I was hoping it'd be long. So we have no students, but congratulations. So I had a couple of questions. I'm looking at our elementary data, and we have like over 5,000 students, but we don't have that many in middle school. So where are we losing about students from elementary to middle school? Do you have any data on that?
There's a lot of those. Traditionally, we have a really high mobility district, almost 25% mobility. And so at that point, I'm just speculating, transfers to what other people in the state. So yeah, it's not like we are we're seeing a cliff in 2024 and 6th grade that's occurring. That's been a major of our system for 20 years.
And Dr. Q, didn't you share at one point some years ago the birth rates, which he does look at that, they were low enough that at elementary at one point we had fewer students coming, and that is making its way through the middle school. Isn't that what you shared previously?
Some years ago, maybe 10 years ago, started that decrease in birth rates. I think, some of the smaller generation would have children. Let's think back to the baby boomers. I mean, August was just 25,000 students in the 50s. And so when you look at societal changes affecting those, yeah, it's a big thing. If we don't have the females for the babies, we don't have the nature of decline. That's a big factor.
Still looks like we're losing a lot of students during that period. I'm wondering if our district can do something about retaining those students. I mean, it's over 1,000 students between elementary and middle school. That's a lot of heads, even with the birth rate change. If I look back on that data, from several years ago, we're still losing a large amount somewhere. I don't know where it is, or maybe I'm just not bright enough to understand this data, but it still looks like we're losing.
We are, and this is one of the reasons why keeping talent in Topeka is key. Dr. Kipp has shared that that across Kansas, we're losing people from Kansas to other states. He tracks where students go and students that leave the state, but parents that leave the state. So, Mr. Munoz, I believe last year asked about maybe even as they're exiting, asking, was it a job? Was it a spousal move? What made you leave the state? Or what made you leave? And so that's giving us information this year when we have exits, as the year gets going, being able to ask what those items are, particularly when you're leaving Kansas. So this issue of enrollment decline is happening across the state of Kansas. Am I correct in that aspect? And so you're right, Ms. Bowley. We have to attract talent to Kansas and to Topeka.
Yeah, this is not a this is not a shining valley that everyone's in Kansas, which lies on the state of the valleys and kids on the way. And then in that graph, keep in mind that I've noticed some other grade levels. So that's why it kind of looks so.
Yeah, thank you for that. See, I knew I wasn't smart enough to read that. It makes total sense to me now.
Yeah.
It has more grade levels. So that was very helpful. I was really afraid. We got to go find those 1,000 kids. Let's get up. All of us get up right now. So that helps. That helps a lot.
And Dr. Anderson's provided some initiatives, for instance, statewide now. And we don't have kids enrolled from Kansas, but they're still out in Western Kansas that are utilizing their services. Plus this where family says, I'm just going to homeschool my kid. This is too much. The financing, challenging, having these 2 boys myself, I could imagine. So why not use our curriculum? Why not use the tools that we provide to these families? Regardless of whether they're out in the state of Kansas. And so we've seen some expansion around the program. Part-time students have also been an issue. We've kind of opened it up, like if someone wants something on homeschool or job, you want to come in for a band or for language, absolutely, we can do that. The state allows part-time students, and they want to come the FTE for those kids. So we're trying everything we can. I think at the high school level, you're going to see a graduation rates are starting to come out now, and we're holiday when we start announcing those. But I just raised the Topeka, and
the number of instruments certifications and keeping us lines on track and that we do have, you know, I think it was some amazing things that they did this year.
Yeah, I got one more question. I notice our special ed numbers are about a quarter of our population. How does that compare to districts around us? Is this unusual for our district, or is this common in most districts?
It's keep in mind that doesn't include gifted. You know, we have about 250 gifted kids. So if you take those out, that might be most 21%, 22%, somewhere in that range. But yeah, it is on the higher ends, especially in in terms of you know, how to grow the education and examiner, especially that's a much better system that it's not really wrong either. And but you know, we don't have a high rate of special ed identification.
Well, I was wondering, do we spend the same types of money on special ed and gifted? Is it a higher expense to our district either way, special education or gifted?
I think as we're proceeding along, the cost to educate a student with special needs is higher than a general ed student. And one of the items we're going to be bringing to you is the legislative agenda to really focus on fully funding special education. Thank you for bringing that out, that it is definitely a higher cost, particularly if a student is at any one of the residential facilities where we save spaces for students that really need that service. We still provide it, but it is not fully funded. So thank you for bringing that out.
Dr. Shaw, did you have a question? It's about 900 students, grade level. I think if you look at elementary, middle school, high school, just a principal's first one. Yeah, that was a little bit less than 1,000 grade level, but the rest of it, yeah. And Dr. Chaparro must double check the square was because it was actually inclusive. Is that budget? Yes, we actually I projected kind of a decrease to be high, but frankly, we learned a lot about this areas and to be high. So that about 25 points. We're going back up to about 2,000 equipment. So, but yeah, it was a blessing in disguise to know honor to be gone. And so, it's very diverse school.
Thank you, Dr. Tripp. I know that must have been a lot of work to put all this together. A few comments I wanted to say about our virtual school. Like, I have a migrant family in another district here in Shawnee County, and one of the children attends that school district, and the other one goes to at Avondale Virtual Academy. So there's just one example that I personally have experienced. I've done a home visit, and I saw her. I'm like, oh, do you need help? Should I enroll you over in such and so middle school? And the answer was, oh, no. I go to Avondale Academy in 501. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's exciting to see this cross-pollination because my kids from Shawnee Heights, they don't have water to see opportunities there, or a particular branch. And so I'm looking into OTC with one of our schools, and it's, Topeka has a big draw of students from some of the local schools, so they have those resources. And so, yeah, I'm just going to have to run to Topeka and head back over. Schools.
Yeah, so I think that's great that we have Avondale, we have TCALC, and I wanted to ask, I heard you present this, I think it was a DCAC, I don't think it was for the whole board, so I would like the whole board to hear, because I remember asking you this question before about why so many out of district, like you said, around 45 or 50 out of district, and I asked you before, and I just want everyone to hear, what were some of the reasons you were given by those families for why they want their kids to attend Topeka Public Schools?
Frankly, the parents that I've talked to, I try to talk to every parent that has a desire to come to our district because there's that exercise of philosophy, are they going to experience or work the same dynamics here that they're going to have in another visual district? But why the two big themes are diversity. I think that's always been, a strength that I've heard from other transference. That they want their children to experience what they're going to see on the web. A diverse racial groups, diverse socioeconomic groups, diverse intellectual groups. And so, I try to screen them and make sure that, what they're really interested in. We do have a lot more program offerings and resources here in 501, but definitely diversity. There's been some issues with gender identification that have come up, and I feel like our most best teams are very good at addressing some of these concerns, and particularly how those associated with some of these kids. And they're struggling in the other district, and my heart goes out to them, and they've gone through all the challenges and tried to learn everything in the other district. And if there's a spot for them, if it's a good fit, they're going to take them.
So diversity and inclusivity are the two areas that were the themes.
Any questions? If not,
That concludes the superintendent's report. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Next item on the agenda is action item. Looking for a motion on action item.
Oh, Mr. President, I move the board approve the policy changes as presented.
So, motion is there a second? I think that's Dr. Schumacher. I know that's second. Any questions? I've seen the questions coming, so my sister.
The vote is open. Let your phone break by hand. Aye.
Yeah.
All right.
The first one says employees with non-employees. Let's see, what page 1051, compensation of board members. I would propose that we change the wording to board members are not employees and do not receive compensation. We are representatives of the district, we're not employees. And it refers to us as employees here.
Mrs. Whiteman, that wasn't one of the policies that are being approved.
That's not the current policy being approved. So for what's on the table, for what you're referencing very briefly, Mrs. Whiteman, that's something that's not what's being approved right now. Is that correct?
It is not?
Right. Okay.
Okay.
So your comment so noted for the policy committee regarding that change in language.
Okay.
For what's being approved for this evening, I'll turn it back over to Ms. Williams.
Never mind.
Okay. Was there any questions regarding the policy changes?
All the votes are in and the motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much. All right, next I want to join the comments posted out front on the website.
Place, you've already seen at your places, letter I constructed. And I'm not sure, just like to ask the board, if this makes sense. I'm addressing three issues. One, the fine that retired teachers have to pay if they return to work with our shortage of teachers, with the campers filing. Although my wife, being a retired state employee, received a mailing that says there are no fines, and yet we've encountered that recently. Secondly, the special education funding is statutorily supposed to be funded at 92%, but we get an average of about 70%. That's over $3 million a year, and it's been going on for at least 10 years. And third, the September 20 census taking, it's inefficient, tremendous use of non-productive time. It takes the state weeks to show that our data are accurate. It takes us weeks to get accurate data to the state. All this time and effort, if they just pay us for the enrollment numbers we get at the beginning of the school year, because there's always some child ill or some out of classes of 25, there's going to be somebody sick that day. And I have heard of certain school districts cheating and not letting or not transferring students till the 21st of September. And so they get away with it and had for many, many years. So the politicians and the newspapers are saying, well, we're fully funding schools. We want to do it. But let's get the teacher salaries up to where they used to be on par with nurses. So we can educate them. As I bored you out of your minds already, I have a niece in Germany that has take-home pay of $65,000 in a high-tax state like Germany. But as she has worked, she has gotten credit towards a master's degree. And if she had a thesis, she'd have a PhD teaching high school English and phys ed. And she teaches 10.5 months a year. If we've got all these bureaucratic things we're asking our teachers and administrators to do, and in an effort to increase our college preparedness, well, doggone it, if we just had a number of days with our bodies in school, we wouldn't be losing ground on the rest of the world, as we continue to do since the early 90s. So if you've read the letter, I just wonder, 3 weeks ago, we all got the addresses and contact information of our senators and representatives. So I said at the top, dear Senator Representative, I don't know if we should just, as a board, sign something like this. Maybe we ought to just forget it. Or if you know a representative or senator, contact them personally with these 3 issues. Maybe in addition. But I think maybe if we, as a board, could agree to some wording, as I've started, then we can send it to the representatives. That K through 12 education committee, well, I shouldn't say what I want to say, but it doesn't accomplish a lot. That's all I have to say.
Thanks so much, Dr. Schmucker. Yeah, thank you. So we met on September 26th with Technology Committee. Mr. Gowan was on vacation, I think. And, but we talked about something that was approved tonight, integration between Tyler Sis and Infinite Campus, their product and use of that. I think there's some integrations and also user access and mobile access. That sounds like it'll be pretty exciting. I spent the last 2 months on Interesting to our high school marching bands. I like the West Illinois Saxon show. I think I would like to pick West and to become all of myself. Civic showcase or I don't know, I'm not sure I don't know to pick West to become. I'm looking at the feeling of our marching bands and that was done. And I just want to say thank you for us and this for this team for listeners. This is really special and excited about which I was on a different level, but I'm really excited.
Vice President. So I don't have any reports to report on because as you all know, I wasn't at the last ball meeting, although in a world I wish I was. I spent most of about half of September jet setting. Started with a conference in Scottsdale, Arizona, a workers' compensation conference, and then I came back for a few days, and immediately left and went to a unemployment insurance conference in Chicago. So that's why I've been. That's why I've been up to. It's been pretty busy, but I'm definitely glad to be back with you guys this week. I am super excited about the video that was shown earlier, encouraging our young people to vote. I was so pleased to be a part of helping that come together, assisting my longtime friend, Dr. Melissa Lacer, and just figuring out ways we can encourage our young folks to be civically engaged. I was heartened to hear the comments made by the principals, and I believe Dr. Harrison earlier, about encouraging our young folks to think critically. I think Ms. Boley talked about diving into the issues and exploring the candidates, and that all leads to a informed, educated voter base that will be ready to stay civically engaged in adulthood, well into adulthood. I think that's absolutely fantastic. Did want to give a shout out. I know that the fifth graders at McEachran are right now in the woods camping somewhere. It's a tradition. Apparently, they've done this for decades. Every year, I guess maybe around this time, the fifth graders get together and they go camping with their teachers and the principal, and they have a good time. So my oldest daughter Madison is among them, and hopefully she's having a fantastic time right now. I feel sorry for the teachers and for Principal Williams, but I think they'll probably all do better for it. The kids will be better for the experience, and hopefully it will be something in which they will remember for a very long time to come. So that's all I have. Thank you.
So I too would like to thank our host and all your staff for having us here. I think it's very, very important that we be out in the community, right? That we support in the schools. It's
I've got to imagine less intimidating for a lot of our parents to be able to come and meet us here, or actually we meet them here, right? This is their turf. And give them an opportunity to see what we're all about, maybe an opportunity to have an open house before or after some of these, just so that they can come and talk and ask questions. I think that's really important, leading up to the civic mindedness piece, And I do think the voting thing is very, very cool. When my kids were children, I remember them getting to vote at their schools, having mock elections, and they were required to come home and talk to their parents about who the candidates were and who we were going to vote for and why we felt, whatever reason, the platform was that we felt was important, or why we were voting on that. And they got to go to school and cast their votes. And I remember them coming home and telling us who won and who lost, and, the little rivalries that would be amongst siblings, when one person's candidate lost and another's won. So, and that's important, right? Because this is a privilege and a right that a lot of countries fight for. And we need to not take that for granted. And I believe it's our duty to instill that in our children. And sometimes I think that sometimes it's just an assumption that gets done. And I'm still, as an adult, I don't know if mortified is the right word, at how many people don't vote. Just thinking that their vote isn't going to make a difference. And then when you get a few thousand people like that with that mentality, how it can make change. So I love that we're talking about it. I love your idea of, the civic trying to win that's a great goal. And I think that's all I've got.
It is very fun to be back at Ross. Love being back at Ross. You're awesome. And like Ms. Schmidt was saying, I also really like the idea of us being out in the community, having meetings at different campuses. I think sends a very strong message to our patrons, our constituents. And about voting, I am, when I was talking about the meeting in August, and I said some community advocates, I didn't necessarily want to out Dr. Masoner, because I know she's not one who wants, limelight, but Dr. Kip, he already did, and then some others. And I want to thank Mr. Tatum for introducing me to Dr. Masoner. I have learned so much from this woman about civic engagement and what more we could be doing to engage our youth, and in Ms. Bully's enthusiasm also for at a young age, how do we start planting these seeds? Because it is just that important. So it sounds like we have board support to follow through with this task force that could be, in my mind, I'm seeing a few board members, a few educators, and of course students to be involved in this task force, where we can look at what we're already doing well and how can we expand on that and make sure that every single, I'm aiming high, every single 18-year-old gets registered to vote. And my last comment is about concurrent enrollment, and like Ms. Bully's question about how the monies were divided between the three high schools. I was wondering that myself. And also Ms. Bully's comment about how parents are informed. This is something that I brought up before. And as a parent of a student in high school, he's still just a sophomore, there is a lot going on in high school. There's concurrent enrollment and AP and TCALC and Washburn Tech. And is there, and I know the schools all have their websites, but it's it's a little overwhelming for me, and I'm a very involved parent. So I think if it's overwhelming for me to learn about what all the options are, like concurrent enrollment, like who pays and how much do you pay, and I just think about how parents who work so much, work 3 jobs, don't speak English, how could they know all of this? And so I guess I'm just asking for more information. Perhaps we can have a presentation about what all is available. And I don't know, could we make a video or something and send it out to families and like with Spanish subtitles underneath? Because it's great, everything that we offer. It's just a lot. So
if I may ask and offer, the college prep created a pretty snazzy, the students' profile for their parent conferences. And it was you click on their picture and these branches come off about college and all of this. Perhaps they could also, we could create it, but perhaps even more empowering for a student to create a similar graphic. And you kind of mentioned something about a graphic previously, and we created a graphic, but it may not be student family friendly enough, but creating a graphic that really simplifies. If you want to go here, here's this. Concurrent enrollment is this. Here are the different pieces. And they're going to present in November, at least they're scheduled right now for November. Would that be something that perhaps, as one of their project-based learning activities, that I will turn this over to them and inform Mr. McKnight. And then when they present, they can unveil that as well. And it's really just a communication tool of how to simplify all the opportunities. And all of them are involved in different things. So that's even a better group. Thank you for that. And we'll bring that back in November.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gardner, for always making me feel like I'm still part of the Ross family. I appreciate that every time I come in. I feel so welcome, and I love still having this as a family base. So thank you. Just a couple of things. Alea Smith came to us last year. She had a Girl Scouts Gold Award for a project she was doing with getting chickens for women in different countries, one in particular. And she contacted me on helping her be a contact person to raise enough money to keep this project going. And so I was hoping I could pass an envelope, if you don't have any cash on you tonight, that you could write down the amount that you would like to give. She needs to raise $30,000 to continue this, and she has contacted a lot of people to help her with that. But if I pass this down to my friends on the board, that we could help this student. She is a senior now at Topeka West and still doing this project. And I would like to help her and donate money. And I'm hoping that some of the others will too. No pressure or anything. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. We want to make these people who are worldwide community helpers, and she is definitely one of those. So thank you if you're able to participate in that. I wanted to also thank Ms. Munoz from Carter for being our Teacher of the Year representative. She is just incredible, and she represented our district so well. And also, we have 2 new people that have been nominated for Teachers of the Year this coming year. Mr. Allen from McEachran and Ms. Dela Cruz from, I don't think she's just a TCAL. I think she's at many, many other places in our district as a consulting teacher. And of course, our student mentioned her tonight. And so I think we have a good chance of getting up into those finals again and getting a winner. I also wanted to thank, and I'm going to get help pronouncing this correctly because I hate. No, it's Yali Lopez Ariola. Thank you. She volunteered to paint a mural at Williams Science Lab, and it's just beautiful. But she dedicated her summertime to painting that mural, and we just appreciate her reaching down and helping encourage young learners. So thank her. I also want to thank everyone, Mrs. Wallace and the whole team for the Kansas Science Fair. They addressed how many fourth graders? Right around 1,000. 1,000 fourth graders. I got to volunteer out there one day. It was just very exciting to see the fourth graders go through hands-on science experiments, being on our grounds at Kansas Park, and seeing our very young TCALC teaching pathway students teaching these projects, and their ability, our futures in good hands in education. It was really great. Also, I volunteered with Future Now Finance at Highland Park High School, and I just want to thank the people who volunteered at the science fair in our community and also in the Future Now Finance. It takes a lot of people to put these on, and our community just seems to always step up and make it happen, and I just really appreciate them for that. Horace Mann was part of our content tonight, that we approved a contract for them to educate, financial education for our staff in Topeka Public Schools. I encourage all of you, as a retired educator, you need to have this financial. I wish I had had it. I wish I had been available to me. It is so important, and I hope you take advantage of it. Our district is supporting it for you to take advantage, so I truly hope you will take the time to take those classes and find out what you can do. Mr. Munoz and I attended a KASB, a Kansas Association of School Boards, event in Ottawa to go over the Kansas legislative initiatives and feedback from all the school districts, superintendents in that region, and we were able to give some feedback, and so we'll know more about that. I meet with them again Saturday on a Zoom meeting to hear about all that feedback, to make the changes for that document that will eventually come to you. And we also had a policy committee meeting, and we're still looking at policy. We'll be bringing more back to you, and it just gets more fascinating every second. So just appreciate our guidance and leadership from Mrs. Whiteman to help us make those policies even stronger and protect our district and our staff and everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Richmond.
Forgot to thank Mr. Gowan. I know I make all these suggestions. Hey, let's go out and meet random places so we're approachable. And you're the one that has to do all the work to make everything behind the scenes.
Okay, a couple of things. The Finance Committee will be meeting this coming Tuesday, so I'll have a report for you next meeting, but I don't have any other committee meetings to report on thus far. Ms. Bailey and I were at a jacketing ceremony for TCALC, and I just wanted to share that that'd be my first time there, just obviously because of COVID, but I was impressed by a couple of different things. One was the students who were amazing. I mean, I just kept sort of, it was bubbling up just how joyous these students were. Obviously, we expect a lot of them, and they step up to the plate. The other thing I wanted to share was that it surprised me the role that parents play in this, that it's not just students who are signing on to this program, but it's parents who actually, as part of the ceremony, they sign a contract that will just sort of support their students the same way that our staff and teachers will really support your students as they endeavor in this new track. And so I think I enjoyed this, and I was so amazed by the students there. And I encourage others to, if you have students who, you want to have them, explore this option, you should certainly do that. I took my family out to TP's Family Fitness Night, which is always good to do, especially this day and age where if you allow kids to do what they want to do, they will stay in their room on their phone or doing things that probably aren't healthy. And so I really appreciate TPS and all of the staff over there creating a space to get kids out of the house and get them active, and to do that in a very interesting way that even though my kids went along with them begrudgingly, they came away amazed at the different activities, the different ways that we can engage young people to be active and stay healthy. So they can do that. This last week I was at Robinson Middle School, and I wanted to say that was a really important thing for these young students to connect with the different individuals who they come with. I think it's important, and so I appreciate all those who made that possible. Two of things today, I was at Sheldon Head Start with my 6 was organized, and I was able to do service there, coats and hats and things. We're not thinking about that just quite yet, but before I would initially play analysis, and it's nice to know that those staff at Sheldon, as well as the budget 6 accompanied with the large time because of how much they give to the parents and authority to the parents, and making sure that the nurses should have to worry about this particular aspect, that they can focus on school, they can focus on being, happy and learning as opposed to some of those other things. So thank you so much, staff, as well as Advisors Excel. And the last thing that I'll say is that I'm really excited to be here, as has been expressed to me over times here at WAS, and I think they may be another place perhaps in the future. But to Schmidt's point, we'd like to see the next logical step might be to have a house where we invite individuals and currently out to our neighborhoods and to have them to just get to know us as people. To forge those relationships and to let them know that space there is theirs as well. So that is all for today. We're waiting, and we will adjourn. Thank you everybody for being here. Have a great night.
Thank you.